Hello, class! Welcome to my presentation on how humans have raised their own carrying capacity over time in our own environment. Let's get into it. Larger brains, increased social collaboration, and the eventual growth of organized large groups have led to the advancement of humans into modern life. The creation of tools and the development of agricultural societies gave humans longer lifespans and healthier lives, which only allow for even further advancement over time, which can arguably be seen in the development of genetically modified organisms, especially in food crops. So humans have raised their carrying capacity through the creation of specialized tools, the spread of agriculture, and eventually through the development of genetically modified organisms, which we'll call GMOs in this presentation. Some of the early humans, Homo erectus and Homo sapiens, are credited as having some form of tool use. Having moved from walking on the ground to bipedalism, Mo Kastani suggests that freeing up the upper limbs allowed the brain size and capability of early humans to increase through the expansion and reorganization of connections in the brain. Essentially, when our hands are freed up, we have more opportunities to use our hands to make creative solutions to our everyday problems. Essentially, the neurons in our brain are allowed to reconnect to make even more connections in our everyday lives. And dating back nearly 1.76 million years ago, early humans used tools described as bifaces, which are stone tools that are flaked on both sides, create a sharp cutting edge. Hand axes and cleavers are forms of bifacial tools that were developed and used around this time period. The book notes that this was such an achievement because these tools remained in use relatively unchanged for so long. They were useful, simple, and versatile, so it makes sense that they would have stayed around for more than 200,000 years. Nicholas Toth explains how the flakes produced by Neanderthals were as sharp as surgical scalpel. This indicates how sophisticated and advanced their tools were, and also denotes the beginning of a timeline of advancements in technology for the human species. The control of fire as well helped humans evolve. Humans developed smaller teeth as a result of cooked food, being softer and easier to cut. Humans also got shorter digestive tracts in order to efficiently allocate energy. This is due to the fact that cooking breaks down the food before consumption. Plant nutrition that was partly too tough to digest is now more easily digested. With being able to efficiently digest plant protein, humans can now diversify their nutrient sources. These illustrate the benefits of humans adapting to using tools for their survival. Cooking allows humans to make the most out of their resources and live longer and healthier. Tool use is key when considering the mechanisms through which humans have raised their own carrying capacity. And now, on this slide, I want to show you a video by Nicholas Toth where he explains a bit more in depth about making stools and how they were done and their uses.
And when people ask, why did they bother to make something this big? They were butchering large animals, sizes of zebra and buffalo on occasion. These are big mammals that weigh hundreds and hundreds of pounds. And would you rather use a razor blade for butchering one of these animals, or would you rather use basically a two-fisted tool like this? You have a lot more cutting edge, a lot more weight behind what you're doing as well. And so when we look at the history of technology, you're seeing changes in the refinement of stone tools over time. By the time you get to Neanderthals and early modern humans, they're probably starting to haft tools onto handles, either using some kind of adhesive material like pitch from a pine tree, or by using sinew or other material to lash tools together.
So as you can see, tool use was incredibly important as it would allow human ancestors an increased quality diet to support their growing brains and allow them to hunt together. Any advances made by early humans would allow them to raise their carrying capacity in any given environment. And now let's move on to agriculture. Agriculture developed about 12,000 years ago, leading to sustained population growth. New patterns in agriculture and the new skill of subsistence and farming allowed humans to migrate and expand further onto the globe. Essentially, Due to humans gravitating towards an agricultural lifestyle, they were able to expand to other places of the globe and thus increase their population size and adapt to new climates and ecosystems. Agriculture made more use of the land, and therefore you could afford to have more people because you have essentially more resources per like square inch of land. You can just essentially make the most out of what you have. And I also want to talk about the star of the show, carrying capacity. Carrying capacity is essentially the maximum limit for which a population could be sustained in their environment. In the past, that limit may have been a lot lower. There were probably not enough wild animals and plants for foragers to sustain a consistently growing population. Thus, the population would stay low. It would be too difficult to hunt in large groups because the natural resources would be too quickly eroded. However, when you begin to cultivate your own food and domesticate animals, the food is always nearby. There's no need to expend energy hunting or foraging anymore. Energy can now be expended directly on food sources, where they can be grown in larger quantities. This is one way to increase the availability of resources in an environment and subsequently raise carrying capacity over time. It's also important to note that this isn't just an issue encountered by early humans and human ancestors. Food insecurity is an issue that occurs today in areas where overpopulation is high. Overpopulation occurs when the population of species is higher than its carrying capacity. And so I just really want to quickly talk about the shape of this graph right here. So as you can see in the first half of the graph, population size tends to grow exponentially, but then it rounds out over here where it reaches this line K, and that's the carrying capacity. So as you can see, if you were to go above this carrying capacity, you would find that the resources are too low for the current population. So people would have to die, and that would bring it back down. And, sometimes it might rise again and bring it back down. And so essentially, it just averages out to this curve right around the top where you can see that population will average out to be just right below the carrying capacity because over time, you just can't support a population that's above your carrying capacity, which is why it's so important for humans to have continually raised their carrying capacity over time. I also, in an article by Melvin J. Oliver, PhD, the argument in favor of GMOs illustrates the significance of carrying capacity. He writes that the total global population could potentially rise to over 10 billion people before 2050, with a majority of that population growth in developing countries. He states that the only real solution to preventing a worldwide food and health crisis is to match the rate of increase in global demand with the rate of increase in yields of stable crops. Essentially, Oliver's argument centers on the idea that in order to meet that demand, GMOs are needed. Oliver is concerned about the idea that global carrying capacity can be reached, and that the way to prevent that crisis is by embracing genetic modification on food crops to increase their resiliency, fortify their nutrition, and enhance their flavor to support the growing population. In another article that analyzes both the advantages and disadvantages of genetically modified crops, they cite hunger eliminations and resistance to harsh environments as benefits of GMOs. The author highlights that some benefits of genetically modified crops is that you can get higher quality items with less space and less effort, and subsequently raising carrying capacity, very similarly to the way that early humans did. In a way, GMOs are reinventing the same process that has been done for years, except in a more precise and controlled way. As you can see in this picture over here on the side, corn over the years didn't always look like how it did. Corn used to be a tiny plant that wasn't very nutritious, very hard to process. So over time, hunters, farmers in the South America countries would essentially pick and choose the crops that they wanted to farm. They would choose the plants with the best features or with the features that they were looking for. This is called selective breeding. And so over a couple thousand years, we eventually get to this type of modern corn that we see that's more nutritious and easier to farm and easier to process. And we even get like tons of different types of corns that evolved for different uses and different flavors and different food types. In a way, it also yields many benefits for the foods humans eat, therefore increases the standard of living and allows for the carrying capacity to be raised. This process is also very convenient because population grows in an exponential pattern, and unless humans can grow food at an increasing rate similar to the rate of population growth, resources will run out. While it's not the only solution, the potential of GMOs is a good example of how humans are still continuing to raise their carrying capacity and how it remains a struggle. While there are multiple aspects and situations that led to humans raising their carrying capacity, tool use in agriculture are great examples of how years of evolution, natural selection, and population growth have led humans to become the dominant species on Earth. And through understanding the important details of human history, one can deduce more about how humans have evolved in response to the changing world, to their own changing environment. Combining these two mechanisms allow humans to take full advantage of years of anthropological achievement to advance the human species further, creating room for humans to grow.